Vintage football shirts are big business these days, and classic football shirts have been in business 20 years. We've come to Manchester to meet the team and see over 1 million shirts that they've got in their warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, anything you like the look of, just pick it out and I'll talk. This is the oldest shirt that we've got in the vault.
It's the 20th anniversary of CFS. We're going to talk about how the very beginnings, like where you started and how the first idea came to be.
2006, doing our finals at university, me and Doug on the same course here in Manchester, looking to find a way, avoiding kind of the graduate scheme route. Ended up, Doug was kind of doing this with his friends, flipping football shirts on eBay. I then sort of came into the same idea as well, and then we were just like, let's just do this as a proper business. Literally remember looking and thinking, surely there's like 10 other people doing this. And it's one of those moments you can sort of I can take myself back to the computer cluster, that's how long ago it was, in terms of Googling it, trying to find what we could. And there was just no one else really doing it on any sort of scale. So we were like, yeah, let's go for it. And everything we had, we just spent on football shirts, and we would trying to operate it out of a student house.
We cause the credit crunch.
Yeah, we call the credit crunch.
But yeah, like growing up, the 1990 World Cup, that's when I kind of fell in love with the football. Always like wanted to get hold of the Germany shirt from that tournament, with the flag across the front. Then at uni, I had that kind of student loan money in my pocket and started looking to find these childhood memories and stumbled across charity shops and eBay, and realised that there just wasn't this place dedicated to selling original football shirts from the past. And yeah, it's kind of convinced each other that it was worth taking a risk and, like I say, maxing out the student loans and credit cards and setting up a website dedicated to providing that place where people can shop football shirt history. We set out to try and avoid getting a real job, and then now there's over 200 people work for the business. We've got this huge 80,000 square foot warehouse.
How many shirts do you think are in the building?
It was well over 1 million units of stock in the building. We've sold over 1 million shirts over the years. On average, we'll process like 2,000 classics a day. There'll be deliveries from all around the world, like big brands, clubs, whatever, like closeout, current season, anything that's going on is passing through this building. So this is the oldest shirt that we've got in the vault. 9th of May 1951. This is the first time England ever wore red in a match against Argentina at Wembley that day. This is Tom Finney's shirt that he wore. I mean, shirt is the operative word here. I mean, like, look at that. It is a shirt. It's got a tail, the buttons, collar, like the material. It's nothing like a modern football shirt. I think they kind of prepare the shirt, and then the badge is stitched on later, and it's obviously unique to the game with the Argentina detail on that.
Why do you think that there was an explosion in interest in shirts from like that point on? Do you think that it's just in this country, or is that just for you, or do you think that that's in general, that's quite an overarching thing? And there aren't that many, there's not that much interest in shirts from the 70s or 80s, or well, why do you think that is?
The 90s is an era that is kind of, it precedes an era of like quite simple design, and I think that then there's this like rebellion that means that people are kind of looking to those kind of patterns at a time where it's all a bit more creative. And I think that that's why people have then like jumped on football shirts culturally.
Yeah, something happened in the mid-80s. Like you had the Denmark shirt from 86 is quite groundbreaking. And then you got the Holland shirt from 88. Then like there's this spark of wave of kind of graphic design and patterns, and football shirts are becoming more commercial. Go back to 70s. It's only really 1978 that you can buy a football shirt in a shop. So they're thinking like, how are we going to evolve this? How are we going to try and sell more the year after? And patterns and all that is the way that they're looking to do it. And I think that there's something about that, the purity of that first wave of it. That they're so interesting, they're so unique, they're so innovative. Is like, that's why that's the peak.
Like football shirts in the 90s become a real part of the popular culture. And then it's like the nostalgic wave within that culture, I think, is what really reinforces the cycle. And since we've started, that cycle has kind of gradually moved with the demographic. So the total 90 range from 2004 is now known as a like really nostalgic thing, whereas obviously to all of us it's a...
And that's only a very recent thing as well. The total 90 range, like we were struggling to really sell through the product. We had far more like supply than demand up until maybe even 5 years ago. It was hard to kind of sell as much as we got, whereas now it's the opposite. It's hard to find it. So things can change pretty quickly than football shirts and kind of trends within fashion.
There's such a cultural prop. Like, you will not find a cultural prop like a football shirt. It's different to any other type of clothing. It really puts you there in that place and time. And I think that more and more people have discovered that. And yeah, that just kind of brings so much.
Yeah. Well, there's the on-pitch memories, but then there's the life memories. There's like where you watch a game, what happened at it, Sony, PlayStation and all that type of stuff. So in terms of like the evolution of players and football boots and contracts and all that kind of stuff, this is a really important shirt. So it's a 2-stripe version of the Holland shirt that was worn at the 1978 World Cup finals. This was worn by Willy van der Kerkhoff in that game. And the reason why he's got 2 stripes is that he had a deal with Puma to only wear their boots. The guy who owned Puma in the Netherlands was a guy called Cor de Boy, who had made his money as a table tennis master and then acquired the Puma license. And he was that big in football that he made it that Johan Cruyff also had to just wear the 2 stripes, couldn't wear the 3 stripes of Adidas. But eventually they kind of got past this and negotiated it through. But like in terms of setting the stall out for the future, that like, say Adidas, so like Leo Messi, huge Adidas boot guy, but he'll play his career in Nike shirts for Barcelona. Like that kind of the reason why that all got kind of ironed out through these type of shirts back in the 70s.
Was there a shirt in the last season or two that you think will sort of go on to become a classic?
The Arsenal third from this season.
Yeah, the Arsenal third from this season. Obviously, Arsenal need to win something first. And I'm an Arsenal fan, so if we did wear that in a final and won in that particular shirt, I mean, we've pretty much sold out of it ourselves already. And I think it's kind of one of those shirts that isn't being cleared at like a reduced price. It's one of those that is already hard to get hold of. So there's multiple kind of shirts a season like that. I think like Venezia obviously had a real kind of moment about 3 to 4 years ago in terms of the Kappa shirts that they had. And like that's the crazy thing now is teams are making names for themselves off the back of the shirt designs. And I don't think that really ever used to happen. Maybe a team wore like a Palermo would wear pink and it would be quite unique. But I think in terms of actual like shirt designs now, it plays a huge factor in things.
Yeah, we'll say that there's always kind of 3 elements that will drive a football shirt. So like Matt alluded to, kind of on-pitch success is something. Then like the kind of hype players that wear it, and then is it a good shirt? Is there something particularly innovative about it? And I think at the moment you've got Adi have brought back the trefoil and the big moments. They feel like we're kind of living in a next cycle of like peak football shirts with the way that they're kind of linked to the past and all of that. So I think that this moment in time, like we are seeing some really good shirts.
Who do you think has the strongest back catalogue overall?
I think I have to go with Kappa first because of that type of innovation. I think that was a game-changing moment, like that 90s going into the 2000s, like you said before, the kind of peak nostalgia of Serie A.
I mean Adidas have got the ultimate back catalogue in that the history goes back through to the 70s and that, and then those real standout, the Holland 88 and the Germany 1990, which are like the goats basically, are both Adidas. And I think that they're the most represented team at the 1990 World Cup, 94 World Cup, and that's puts them there.
Yeah, I'd say outside of Adi, then you got to look at Kappa as well in terms of like consistently being there. I think like Umbro you can say I've got the history and I've got some amazing kits and more on like the simple side, like classic looking, especially for England.
What do you think is the ugliest shirts?
I think the obvious ones are the ones that like you can tell no effort's gone into it. They're just a rushed job. I don't want to throw my bio, but he used to wear for Diodora, and I always kind of joke that the Scotland 2003, like that era, that you can tell there's not much like effort gone into it, I think. But seeing as he works with me, I think I can say that. I kind of enjoy the garish ones because at least they're trying different things and like they're kind of making a bit of a statement. But I mean, there obviously are some horrendous shirts out there, but I think for me, being involved with football shirts day in, day out, if you see something boring, you wouldn't even notice it. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, on that line, like kind of Gary alluded to, I'd say like that Euro 2016 is like the most boring for football shirts. I think they were really just going for like solid colours, like Rears wanted red versus white, and like there's just Spain, Germany, all that. It just kind of blurs into just one blank.
But then like 2018 was a great, so I think what they really
is then you've evolved into like Belgium have got like the 1984 pattern on the front, Nigeria to 2018's there. There's the graphics are coming in again. So yeah, 2016 I think is where it bottoms out in terms of boringness. But there's something probably in it that like England lost to Iceland in Euro 2016 and like that shirt versus 2018 where you got to semis, it was great. Like they're both pretty boring shirts, but the 2018 is much more in demand than the 2016 because of the on-pitch stuff. Here we've got Fabrizio Ravanelli's shirt from the 1996 Champions League final that Juventus won in Rome. So iconic shirt, huge moment in their history. Ravanelli scored in the game, did the famous shirt over his head celebration. This was like only the second time that a name set had been worn on the back of a shirt in the Champions League final. So like really cool shirt in general, but like hugely significant match shirt and worth a lot of money.
The holy trinity, really, isn't it? Like good design, good player, and match worn, but then to score the goal in such a moment as well. It's just
this shirt came from an Ajax player who swapped shirts with Ravanelli after the game. I actually interviewed Ravanelli during COVID on a like a lockdown video call. And he did verify that like he did swap shirts with that player that night, and that was one of the best moments of football shirt collecting was to kind of get the verification from the guy himself that like, yeah, you have got my shirt. Can I have it back?
Obviously, we're here in the inner sanctum of your warehouse. It's the temperature-controlled vault. Am I right in thinking these are largely match worn, or are these just your most valuable ones?
Up until kind of 2016, we would sell everything that we bought in order to kind of keep building the business. Then in 2016, we started buying directly from players and ultimately getting shirts that were just felt too good to sell, like the just ultimate fantasy grail stuff. So I started putting them to one side. As with everything at CFS, it gets a bit out of hand, and before we knew it, we had about 7,000 of them.
I couldn't believe in the book, coming across the Pele shirt in 1970.
So the backstory on that, I mean, it's probably stolen goods to some extent, but like Umbro, I think they manufactured some in Stockport, and 1970 World Cup, randomly Brazil wore Atleta, Brazilian band, I think in the first half of games, and in the second half they wore Umbro shirts. And those Umbro shirts were manufactured not far from here, like on the outskirts of Manchester. And one of the people working on the production line had like gone, oh, that's a number 10 Pele one. I'll have that one for myself. And he'd banged it. I'm sure he'd asked his manager.
You sure? That was 55 years ago. Got some documentary.
Tell me that he'd asked for permission to take that sample, and he kept it, and then wanted to let it go and sold it to us. So it technically speaking is it's the Pele shirt, but yeah, it's not one off his back. But then the spirit of what like they're saying in terms of like, we've got that. Okay, now can we get the one off Pele's back? Probably not, because it'd be worth
What about a similar one sold? Yeah, they're about 150, 160.
That was the previous record holding shirt until like the Maradona auction blew everything out of the water. I think it went for about 160 grand in 2002. And then, yeah, that Maradona going for 7.2, whatever it is. Yeah. It's like a 90s transfer fee. Would you have the hand of God or Chris Sutton?
What is the most expensive shirt that you've paid for in here?
The most expensive one I've bought personally was Eric Cantona's shirt from the 94 FA Cup final, like into the tens of thousands of pounds. But, you know, obviously Man United fan, and like that one, 94 FA Cup final, he scored the 2 penalties against Chelsea. You know, remember where I was watching that game, like the opportunity came up to buy it. Like, yeah, turn it down.
It's a great shirt, great player, and it's important to you. So
yeah, exactly. But there's lots of stuff in here. You know, we've paid thousands for is worth tens of thousands, and the market is kind of changing quite rapidly. Like, so that kind of Maradona auction almost set a new bar and like blurred all the lines, and then you've got all the random stuff with kind of crypto and collectibles and like what is X worth now. And you know, there's been some recent auctions like John Terry had a Messi shirt, went for like $175,000. Like, those were just kind of unthinkable prices before. And then how does that filter down, even down to your just like replica bruised banana? Like, well, if that's worth that, what's that worth? And it's an ever evolving kind of thing to manage. Like, the prices that everything goes for is complex.
I think as well, one other good story is like we get people contacting us like through a request form on the site, and this was quite a long time ago now, probably like around 2010, 2009. But I think the oldest shirt we ever had was the 1935 FA Cup West Brom shirt, and like it turns out the story was because we were like, sure, you have, like, okay, yeah, it's probably just a Toffs or something. It's like, how did you get it? It turns out it was his granddad was friends with one of the players, and they worked in the pit together after, and because they were friends, like, it obviously just then gone around to his house and was like a West Brom fan and like gifted it to him, so it'd like been passed down through the family, and then it was an amazing shirt to have. That's one we should have really
should have never sold that. But you know, the maverick of football shirt design in the 90s was Mexico goalkeeper Jorge Campos, who literally made his own shirts. This has got an Umbro logo on it, but it's nothing to do with them. He's made this himself, inspired by Acapulco surf fashion. This is a shirt that he wore just before the 1994 World Cup, where he really kind of burst onto the mainstream and like just captivated everybody with his incredible, unique shirt. I mean, if you feel this, it's so heavy and thick, like kind of canvas material that is basically just being painted on. Nothing like the kind of goalkeeper shirts that Peter Schmeichel and everybody else was wearing back there.